What we're going to do, we're going to run from 11 till 12. First up, we're going to start with Phil and Matterport scans, which is, fascinating area. And then Peter's going to lead us through an immersive learning suite at Brunel. So, Phil, if you're happy, I'll hand over to you and you can share your screen and I'll stop talking.
No problem. Thanks, Rob. Okay, I'll just share across with you. So Matterport is obviously, hold on, let me just bring up myself back on the screen now. Okay, Matterports are sort of like a Google Street View if you're not familiar with it. And I've titled this The Embodied Sense of Being There, because I want to take you on a little philosophical mindset to start this off. But just to give you a bit of context, my name's Philip Walker, based in ATU, which is north, west and west of Ireland. We're very recently, we've turned into a university campus, but we're aligned with Galway and Sligo, so we're quite a big area. We cover a large area. We have about 9 campuses altogether. Prior to that, we were just a small college, and that's when we bought Matterport, which was actually during the lockdown period, as a way to do sort of virtual tours for students. And this is us taking it somewhere else. But I'm going to start with a bit of philosophy. So the embodied sense of being there. We have Martin Heidegger. If you're familiar with him, he's a German philosopher. And he looked at the sense of being alive, basically, being there, being present. And he has this lovely idea about what's known as present at hand, which is where he says there's tools in the world that when we use them, before we use them, actually, we have a sense of what those tools are. When we use them, they actually become part of us. So they're sort of ready to hand as the using of a tool. And he describes the use of a hammer. And he says, you can look at a hammer and it's present in your mind and you know what it does. But until you use it, you don't have that kind of sense of actually how it works and allowing it to become part of your body, in the sense that when you're hammering a nail, you forget the hammer's there and you're doing the job of hammering. And I think this applies to a lot of what we're doing in the digital world at the moment. Is sort of these tools we're creating for education, they sort of become ready to hand. So they sort of, we forget they're there, in the sense, when we start using them. And so if we're moving into talking about Matterport, we're sort of looking in this mixed reality environment. So we have obviously the physical world colliding with computer generated environments. And in that kind of extended reality area, that's where you've got your augmented reality and you've got your virtual reality, which all plays a part inside of this continuum, so to speak. So if we look at that in a sort of diagrammatic way, it sort of looks like this. This is where we have on our left side our physical reality, which we're all familiar with. And then right over on the other side, we have virtual reality, where the graphical elements are created. And the reason I put this in a continuum is because obviously we're moving from the real to mirroring the real and then reimagining the real. And what we've done often with photography, going right back to actually film photography, is we're trying to replicate something of what we see in our physical world. And what we end up doing in virtual reality is we sort of reimagine and recreate what we've seen in this replication of the physical reality. And Matterport sits right sort of in the middle of that. It gives us the opportunity to create 3D environments that are 360 scans, but we're still mirroring the real in that. But there is an option within Matterport where you can take some of the materials and sort of turn them into virtual reality. And that's where we start to think about working out problems in the virtual realm, and how does that play it back into the physical reality. I've been looking at this in our campuses. We have a lot of very, I'd say, practical courses that we run. So I've been looking at this in the sense of how do you give students an opportunity that goes beyond them just having the concrete experience and then using their photos, their notes, and their indirect experience to sort of do that self-directed study. But this is sort of bringing Matterport in as a foundation at the bottom of that, as something that they can refer to as they work through their materials. And it all goes back to this sort of TPAC model. Because we're at the early stages of this project, we're looking at it through the lens of TPAC to make sure that it fits to each one of these circles within TPAC. So we're aligning technology with teaching, with the subject content to make sure there's a context for learning. Matterport tends to be used as a virtual tour. So you may have seen it in the likes of museums, even universities. We basically jump through the hotspots a little bit like Google Street View. But I'm trying to see what are the options within the platform that could lend themselves to learning so that we can start using it in that way. We've used it predominantly just for virtual tours, but I'm trying to see what we can do within the classroom itself. So I'll take off the slides and I'll actually go to Matterport because it is better just to see the environment itself and what we're working on. Out of interest, does anyone use Matterport? A few nods, a few shakes. Okay, so this is the environment. It's a 360 stitch of a series of still images. And I'm based here in our campus that's in Killybegs. It's right next to the sea, lovely campus, and it's very much tailored towards students who are working on culinary skills and also restaurant management. There's also tourism in this campus as well as various other courses. But what you're in here is the restaurant environment where students get 6 hours as part of the 6 hours practical time as part of their restaurant management course, and they get 6 hours theory time, which is outside of the practical environment that you're in at the moment. And what we noticed was that the students, when they step away from the environment, they have to learn things like table layout, for example. So you've got an example here of an a la carte menu. And they have to get used to this environment, but based upon those notes and photographs that they're taking, and also the teaching elements that are inside a Blackboard, which they use. And the tutor actually brings up some images of the environment using small videos, snippets he's made, but there's no sense of being there in that time when they step away from this environment to reflect upon their practice and how they've been learning. And that's why we've started to use or consider the use of Matterport, because this is a scan we've just made kind of as a prototype. And you can see here, I've got actually a menu on the side here that gives me different options. Normally, like I said, it tends to just be, you've got a space that you can move through, but you don't have sort of teaching elements in it. You can put tags into the environment, but I wanted to think about how we align this to the actual course itself. So the module deals with these different units, and Matterport's got this new feature now where I can just actually bring up new tags within that environment. So you can see here, we have an option where we can see what's in the cupboards, for example. Students can come back, reflect upon what they've done. And we've taken a lot of photographs throughout the whole site to actually then build up this as a model that students can use to engage with. You can also see at the front there, there's our a la carte menu. And again, this is just a prototype, so this is seeing what it can do. If I pop across here, just next to, oops, you can go too far. Next to the table, front, click number 1. Here's some of the materials that the lecturer used. I don't know if you can hear the audio on this. No, it's probably not playing. I need to share that across. Let's see. Sound on. Share. So there we go, just some materials that
next images you will see the table has to be first of all
the lecturer has used to kind of talk about hygiene issues within the restaurant environment. And this links into Panopto, so I was able to bring that up. Panopto can play back some of those materials as well. And obviously you can put in images there and just have descriptions attached to it. So it is basic in that sense, but it is an opportunity for students to then go back and revisit some of the practical elements that they've kind of learned within that environment. Now, the benefit I liked particularly of the way this menu works is you can actually overlay different materials at different points. So if I was to go to a particular start location, and I've jumped into the kitchen area, which is next to the restaurant area there, and you can see I have a scenario here, which is a kitchen accident. And And this would then give the opportunity to work through a particular scenario with a question attached to it, at which the students can make decide where they're going within that scenario during the accident and how they're going to deal with it, and then linking that back into sort of a reflective practice within Blackboard. So we actually can go into seeing the screenshots that they've created and put together. And this is the walkthrough of what they would do, and they have to write their reflection with it. In terms of what Matterport offers in its layout and its whole view, you can see you get an entire sort of doll's house experience. So this is the layout of the kitchen area, and then you also have the layout of the restaurant. So it's not just an area that can be used by only the restaurant operations students, but we've obviously got use for the culinary arts students as well in here. So it can be replicated again and again, and we can create a new space at which those other students can interact with it. And we also have the option to go and take the 3D model, and the plans are to actually get a download. If we can get the funding, we can get a download into Unity and bring in this 3D model here. So the entire space can be turned into 3D. And we want to bring that into Unity to actually replicate the environment with the table set up, and actually have students in virtual reality practice some of the routines that they have to go through, particularly for table setup. So we can go to the point of even creating the knives and forks and that type of thing for the plates and the layout within that environment. So that's a new feature that Matterport have added, and they are adding new features regularly. Obviously in this one, it's fairly basic at this stage, and it is a new feature that I'm sure they'll develop. But you can see part of the issue is you're dealing with a platform that's geared towards usually construction, architecture. It's used heavily in sort of real estate. It's used heavily in virtual reality and tours, in terms of virtual tours. This is using it in the sense of for a teaching purpose. So you have to think at some point of kind of you sort of altering a mindset, basically going in the development of this to try and think about it with its teaching aspects alongside it. We have another space which I'll show you here, which is our engineering lab. You can see there's options to put downloadable materials in there, but the reason we use this was because in the lab itself, students come into this environment and forget how to use bits of materials. For example, the drill press. This then has
Next up, we're going to hold
a series of videos that just explain how to use the drill press step by step. The idea with that is that the lecturing time was often interrupted with students asking questions about how to do something that they've already learnt in prior sessions. So we wanted a way that we can sort of build these tutorials into this space alongside thinking about, for example, what you've got here are all the different drawers with the equipment attached to it. And we want to capture what's in those drawers so that students know where things are within the environment, as well as health and safety information. So there is a few other videos that we're going to populate here which talk about what they have to wear when they go into that space and make sure that they're ready to use the right equipment with the right safety outfits. This does embed into Blackboard quite nicely and VLEs generally. And this would be the way we use it with students. There's a VR aspect that you can add to Matterport, but we've decided, because obviously where they're at with the development, they don't have the tags attached into the VR. The VR is very immersive, and it is quite a nice experience to see the space and walk around it, but you don't have these tags popping up, and I think that's a big drawback at the moment where Matterport are at in terms of the space and where it's developed to. And then the final space I'll show you is this is a courthouse room where our law students this is based in Letterkenny, our nearby town. Our students get a few hours in the summer in this space, the law students, to experience what it's like in the courtroom. And so we wanted to replicate it in a way that they could visit the space without actually obviously having to be there, but then we wanted to add some other materials in there to think beyond it just being a virtual tour. So in this case, we've got some videos and materials at the moment that just have, for example, your judge introducing herself.
I am at the very front of the courtroom and in an elevated position, which means that I can easily see everybody.
Okay. And to extend that, bringing in case law and using the menu option that I showed you with the restaurant design to actually go through a case law, unpack it and have it evolve. And that's storifying the environment into a scenario-based approach. So that's what we're kind of building that to see if it would work in this environment. And then it's something to test with students at a later date. In terms of accessibility, Matterport has a statement that it's written based upon that, but there are now actually third-party tools available that are giving sort of accessibility options available. So you can see here's our Four Seasons resort, which you can move around in, obviously in the same way. But you notice the hotspots, they're actually over on the left-hand side, the right-hand side here, sorry. And this allows for screen readers if someone needs that to be able to go through the materials that are based in that space. But I think Matterport does have a little bit to work on in terms of getting accessibility up and running. So that's something just to consider, especially as that's quite an important feature for education. Okay, in terms of cost, Matterport has a free area. So you can get one active space, like one of the spaces I've just shown you. And when it says 2 users, that's not 2 end users. That's 2 users to build in that space. And you can use even your phone to actually do the capture for a Matterport, but it has to have, I think it has to have a LiDAR feature attached to it. And you also have the option to use cameras that are like the consumer level 360 cameras, such as the Insta 3X, 1X, 2X, 3X. When you go up the scale in terms of spaces, we've got 25 spaces that we're using. And you can scan as much as you want in an environment. So it can be as, we could scan our whole campus basically and put that into Matterport into one space only. So it is that kind of scale that we're able to use. We've not done that obviously, but the active spaces allow you just a few extra features, including the download option, where you have to pay a small fee extra and you can download into Unity. So I can pass these on if you're interested, these links. The cameras themselves are fairly expensive if you're using the latest versions, such as the LiDAR, which is the Pro 3. We got the Matterport Pro 2, which actually, the way it works is it's on a sort of axis and just moves around, does 6 photographs and then stitches them automatically. So it's much easier using this approach. And then obviously you can use the Insta cameras as well, which you may be familiar with. If you are interested in these kind of this area and this space, it's not just Matterport. That's just one platform of many, but the We Get Around network's the one to go to get a real understanding of what's available. And you can try out obviously the different platforms to see what suits your needs. There's a whole forum on this site that you can get your teeth into, ask questions, that type of thing. But just remember, it's not really education focused. So go back to that TPAT model. Make sure you're focusing on the elements for education if you want to use it in that way. But definitely one worth searching and going through. I think that's pretty much everything. If there's any questions, I can obviously go through those with you if anyone has any. And I'll pass it back to Rob.
That's brilliant. Thanks for that, Phil. Really comprehensive. And I find these sort of technologies fascinating where you sort of recreate the digital version of a physical environment. Lorenzo, your hand was up first.
Bill, thank you very much. Very nice presentation. So my question is maybe a little bit difficult. We do a very similar thing using another approach, which is mainly photogrammetry. So we work on real 3D environments rather than 360s. Now, the question is, Matterport is a third-party platform where you create content in it. Let's say tomorrow, in a year's time, you have very high-end educational recreation of environments with questions and videos and everything, very well done. And another university approach you and say, "Oh, can we use it? And we pay you, a monthly fee or a yearly fee." Where we stand in terms of who owns what, meaning because you are using a third party as an environment, are you as university allowed to sell what you created for a fee? I'm wondering if you investigated this aspect of the thing.
Yeah, I mean, I just know about the storage, that the Matterport, they store the content. There isn't actually a way to download the scan itself. So obviously you pay, the buying in is buying the platform. They own that. You can obviously pay to download the model.
That's okay. But let's say I want to have access to your material and you are happy for me to have it, but I transfer money to you. Do you think is legally doable, or because there is a third party that?
Well, it does happen. Like in terms of this is used where people are generating Matterports, and selling that as an option, and that they turn that into their business. So a lot of photographers are getting into that space.
So it is possible, you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're actually paying for them having the equipment and then hosting it for you. So they would pay for the hosting. That does happen. I haven't got into the ins and outs of whether or not you're able to give them the scan as such and get that moved into their ownership.
But having access to the material without downloading the content probably is crystal clear that is possible. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, just to add to that, Lorenzo, Tunde's put information on the consult service. Yeah, it might be worth getting in touch with them.
I really wanted to know, someone doing this, if has gone through these process and questions, because it's
someone's
not an easy
on your behalf, Lorenzo. You'll find out.
Yeah, well, gathering info. Thank you.
Anita asked if there's an academic discount, Phil.
Yes, I think there was. Let me see. I think we did have one. I'd have to look into it and come back to you on that one. I wasn't involved in the payment, so.
Yeah, no worries. We'll look into that, Anita. Tony's mentioned it. So for anyone interested in Liverpool, we've got a few options for this. We've got the H5P and the 360 camera that we run. And Tony, I don't know if you just want to talk about your experience quickly, as it sounds like your hand went up when someone said, do you use it as well?
Yeah, we did. We did a nice little project last year with chemistry. So Kate, I think Kate's on the call too, will be aware of it. We worked with some people in chemistry to record the CTL labs, and then we used it to run a health and safety activity, because the current health and safety activity was just kind of like paper-based, really basic multiple choice questions on Canvas, which is a bit dull for students. So we made the scan, we embedded the questions within the scan, and then got the students as a group to walk around the space and explore it and answer the questions, and they found it much more. We did a little bit of an evaluation. The students enjoyed it much better. I think Gina, who's looking after it, is going to roll it out wider next year. So we can turn in the dry, horrible health and safety stuff into something a little bit more interesting. So yeah, we got, I think we the Virtual Engineering Centre over in the Diff. They helped us with this. But I think we've also bought one in engineering. We've done a whole scan of our department to put online, and I think we've got an outdoor one as well. So if anyone's interested in doing some stuff where they do field trips, but some students can't access the field trips, I think you can do some scans for outdoors as well. So I guess whoever owns them would be happy to lend them out if people want to explore it.
That's brilliant, and yeah, we'll get in touch if that's right, Tony. We'll see if we can get that case study as well, so more people can see that. Meg, sorry, your hand went up as well, and then Kate.
Hi, yes. So my question was, have you got any experience, Phil, of using VR headsets with this Matterport content?
It does work in the browser on VR headsets. So we've done it with the Quest 2, and it works okay to a point. Obviously, the 3D element comes into play when you do put it in the headset, which gets very kind of wow. It's a wow factor, I suppose. Without the hotspots being there, though, I do think that detracts from it. The other issue is to do with height. So you saw the scan I did in the mechanical engineering lab there. We did 2 scans in there. One was with a phone, and the other was with the actual Matterport square camera that you saw. The camera itself, the actual Matterport camera, was lower down. And so there was a strange experience standing next to the drill presser and actually looking at it, because you were at a weird height, especially, you know, I don't know where the optimum height would be, but it definitely affected from the experience that we had using the phone scan, which was done at the height of my colleague, who's fairly tall. And that was actually a much better experience being higher up.
I wonder if there's a way of being able to select your height. My other half, as you know, is an architect, and I know when he's created 3D models that you then look at through virtual, you know, headsets, he is 6'5", and when I look at it, I feel really odd because I'm so far away from the floor.
I mean, it's a strange experience. I think you can do it if you were to replicate it in 3D and actually create a virtual experience of it, it would work. But because we're mirroring that reel, it's not going to work in the same way, because you can only have the set height you've recorded it at least in this instance with this technology.
Thanks.
Great. Thanks for that, Meg and Phil. One more question, Kate, if that's okay, and then we'll move on.
Thanks, Robert. More of a comment.
Oh, sorry, your headphones pointing up. Your mic.
Because I wasn't planning on saying much. I was just going to follow on from what Tony was saying then about CTL. So CTL have since purchased their own Matterport, and we've got scans of all our laboratory spaces. And we actually spoke to the people who were at Open Day doing the halls tours and saying maybe you could scan some of the halls of residence, and it'd be quite useful looking at accessibility for students with physical disabilities perhaps. But our kind of hope now is to roll out what Tony and Gina did with that pilot project for health and safety, but also kind of making it a more accessible space, maybe for international students, showing students where, you know, height adjustable fume hoods are and things like that, as well as embedding all of our pre-lab safety across the building. So I just thought I'd update everybody on where we're up to.
That's brilliant, Kate. And yeah, I'll get in touch with you again outside of this, if that's okay, just to get that down, you know, and circulate that in writing, because I'm sure a lot of people will be interested to see that. Thank you. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Phil, for that. That was brilliant. And I'm happy to pass on your email if you're happy to be contacted with follow-up questions, or they can go through me if you prefer. But yeah, just to say thank you. So the second part now, we're going to move over to Peter from Brunel, another external guest that we thank for coming. So Peter, are you with us? And I will spotlight your camera because he's actually joining us from the Immersive Learning Suite. Let me just find you.
I'm here.
Okay, where are you? Can anyone see Peter? Here we are. Right, let me just do this. Here we are. He's in the room, and I'm going to make you big for everyone. There we are. Could someone confirm that Peter's now big and on their screen?
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Perfect.
Yes. Awesome.
Over to you.
All right, great. Thank you. So good morning, everyone. My name is Peter. I'm a learning technologist in health sciences here at Brunel University. So welcome to our immersive learning room. My colleague, Nicola, is supposed to join us online, but I'm not sure if she's here. I couldn't see her, so might be having some technical issue from her end. But anyway, so in this presentation, I'm going to just show you quickly how we use this immersive learning space to enhance teaching and learning experience for our learners. So yeah, as you can see, I'm in a room. I think it's 4 meter by 4 meter space. We got 3 touch screens. So these 3, they're all touch screens. So we used this immersive learning room initially was designed for clinical simulation, but we try to explore various different learning activities in the immersive learning room to provide our students a more immersive learning experience. So in this presentation, I'm going to show you 3 different types of activities in here, and I'll talk you through some other our future plans that we are piloting at the moment. So if you can see on the on my right, your left walls, these 2 are some examples of simulation scenarios. We've got clinical simulation scenario, and this one is for OT, occupational therapy, and social work. Home visit scenario. Later, I'm going to talk you through some learning content that we imported into the immersive learning room to enhance more learning experience in anatomy. So we've got these 3D anatomy models, and also we do quite a lot on gamification. So I'm going to show you our gamification system that we developed. So yes. So any questions so far? No,
none in the
all
chat
good.
yet, Pete. No, it's all good.
All right. Yeah.
One hand up.
Megan. Yeah.
Oh, hi. I just had one question.
Yes.
Sorry if I missed it. I just wondered what technology you were using. So what software are you using to sort of host the simulations?
So we've got in terms of hardware, we have 3 projectors on the ceiling. I wish I can move the camera and show you the ceiling, but in front of me is a massive big screen, so it's a little bit too difficult to lift it. So there are 3 projectors, 3 cameras on the ceiling to see where I touch the wall and feed it back to the computer. So in terms of technology, it's very simple. In terms of the content, we use Interface. So it's a software called Interface to create those, which we can talk through more once I start showing you the content. All right. So first, I'm going to show you the So this is a clinical scenario. Specifically, it's for an A&E environment. You should be able to hear that it's a bit noisy environment, even though I turned down the volume. Can you hear that?
Not too loudly, no. Peter. It might
Not
be
too
noise
loud.
cancelling.
Oh yeah. Probably the headphone is just too good. Can you hear anything?
No, I can't hear anything. Sorry. We believe you.
That's all right. Well, I'll show you if we change the microphone later. But yes, we create this kind of simulation scenario. For this one, it's for OT and medical school and nursing, where students will need to assess the patient. So as you can see, we have a timer here. When I tap it, it starts counting down from 10 minutes. So in this specific scenario, students come in, they have 10 minutes to make decision. So they have to assess the patient. So we'll put hospital bed here at the center. Sometimes we use mannequins, sometimes we use service users, or we worked with performing arts students as interprofessional learning, where performing arts student lying here as a patient and talk to our learners. So what student can do when 10 minutes timer start, they'll be able to get, I'll move my camera a little bit. So you can see at the side here, they have some options. So when I tap patient record, we'll bring up the patient record on the screen where student can look through the medical history of this patient, and they know this person lying here is called Mr. Johnson. and these are the medical history. So this is something that student will be able to do in this scenario. Also, the computer here, if I have the computer here, will bring up, for example, bring up X-ray, which appeared there. So student will be able to see the X-ray, and also I'll be able to bring up the CT scan. Over here, and ECG. It appear. Yep, it's over here. So these are the information that student will be able to access when doing this practice. And also we also put so we also put a live website here. This is called BNF. So nursing student will refer the use of medicine through this website. So we can put a live website in the scenario as well. So nursing student will need to practice to refer the formula and the information from there. So this is an example of a clinical simulation. We used this room for, this is a home visit scenario. So for OT, occupational therapy, and social work students, they do these kind of activities. In this specific scenario, social work students were told that 2 young children were left in this environment, and police has taken them away. Now social worker coming in, they need to come in to assess the environment and to look at children safeguarding issues around here, any hazards. So what students can do, they can open the fridge, check, and we notice there's not much food in the fridge, but 2 pieces of raw meat. They got some food, but not a lot. And they can check the cupboard here, some cleaning stuff here. And got lots of alcohol there. So student will be able to come in to this environment to assess and to find clues or find any evidence. And not just things on the wall. When we are doing this practice, we put actual physical stuff in the room as well to extend the illusion and to make the whole room more realistic for simulation. So for example, we put a bed here, some other stuff on the floor, some nappies on the floor. So yeah, to give student that the immersive experience in these kind of simulation scenarios. What we've got, addition to the things on the wall, I hope I can show you this here. If you can see, I'll move this out of the way. That box over there, yeah, this box, this is a smell machine. So what we do is it would put specific smell. So when we are running a clinical simulation, we put hospital smell. So when students are in here, they not just look like they are in a hospital, but they feel like they are in a hospital. So with the sound, with the smell, and the visual, we try to replicate the same experience as they got in practice. And for this one, if I remember correctly, we put urine smell. So it didn't smell nice. So yeah, so we can put specific, and we can create specific smell in the room to create that immersive experience. And also sometimes I put noise smell in there as well. But yeah, we have various different type of smells that we can create in the room. So these are the examples for simulation scenarios. Any questions so far?
None in the chat, Peter. I mean, it's absolutely fascinating. You know, the smell machine, you can see where that could be used in sort of retail as well, can't you? I'm sure the bakeries do that, you know, in Tesco and things. But Phil's hand's gone up. Phil, you're on mute, sorry.
There we go. Fascinating room and layout. I'm just wondering, is there a way to sort of create your own bespoke layouts as well on top of what you've got there?
Yes, that's a very good question. So these are all create bespoke. So they are all new, we work with the supplier to create these scenarios. So with my role, I work with academics to understand the learning outcomes, the learning aims, what they are looking for, what kind of practice that they want students to do, and then we create those. So they are all tailor-made. So it's not something that already sit in the system. And we can do it ourselves. I just don't have the capacity. So we outsource to the company to do that. But yeah, they are all tailor-made to fit and to align with the learning outcomes. And that's the platform I mentioned earlier called Interface, the system, the software called Interface. These are all created on that system.
Brilliant. There's a question in the chat, Peter. Have you ever tried images that simulate the world as for someone that has perhaps neurodiversity? So you change the perspective of the people in the room so they experience it from someone else's perspective.
We haven't, but that's a very good idea. So we have this room starting from last September. So we are trying new ideas, trying new things. So we haven't, in short answer, but that's definitely something that we'll probably try to do in the near future. Yeah, so if no more questions, I'm gonna move on. So these are the for simulation activities. Let's see what we got next one. So this is one of the gamification that we've got mostly for soft skills. So if you can recognize that that logo over there, this is activity. This is a gamification. We call it a Crystal Mission, built and developed based on the TV show The Crystal Maze. Do we know the TV show Crystal Maze? Yep, I can see some of you nod your head. Awesome. So yes, we developed this. We create a few different escape rooms. This is one of them that we use for communication skill, leadership skill, and teamwork. So you can, well, I'm not sure if you can hear it, but there's a background music that reminds you of the TV show. So this is a miniaturized version of the Crystal Maze. We call it Crystal Mission. So we are now in the futuristic zone. Wait a minute, let me try to move the camera a little bit. And as you can see, there are 4 doors. We've got physical game, mental game, skill game, and mystery game. So if you remember the TV show, when one person doing the task in that little room, the rest are outside of the room, look through a little window and shout at the person to give them support, verbal support to finish the task. And this is what we try to replicate, is one student in the area doing a task where others sitting here where the camera is, verbally give them support, to give them some information to help them to finish the task. So behind each door, there is a task behind each door. And we find it very interesting that during a debrief, students point out some very critical skills that they can bring in clinical practice. For example, spoiler alert, in a mystery game, as they need to use some math skills. One of the group highlighted that there are 4 people in a team. When they enter the mystery room, 2 of them know what's happening, but two of them has no idea whatsoever throughout whole 4 minutes. And one of them is actually very good at maths. So they have their reflection on next time when they are doing something similar, they will spend probably 30 seconds or 1 minute to ensure that everyone is on the same page so they have 4 functional teammates to work on the task rather than only 2 of them, which are not very good at maths. So there are lots of things that they bring from this gamification experience that can link to clinical practice. What we are doing at the moment is we are gradually building the whole crystal maze. So if you remember in the TV show, there are 4 different zones: futuristic zone, medieval zone, Aztec zone, and industrial zone. We're building these 4 zones. What we are doing is when they finish the futuristic zone, we have a debrief. They come up with a strategy, and we are putting them in a second zone. So the second zone will be the medieval zone. See how they apply those strategies. So we will try to assess if the learning happened between 2 activities. So how do they apply these strategies to the next zone? And then in the third zone, Aztec zone, we're going to mix them with different team members. So in the first 2 zones, they are all the same other 3 course mates that they work together. But we want to go through the more interprofessional learning route that see how they will be able to work with diverse teammates, and then see how the learning happened again throughout these 4 different stages of the gamification experience. Once again, these are all created bespoke that we develop these. We work with the supplier to create the visual and the games. So this is an example of the gamification. If you're interested, and if the time allows, I'll show you more escape rooms that we created later. So this is the gamification. The last bit is what we use for anatomy teaching. So yep, I can see that on the screen. I might want to move you closer. Yep. So this is a system called BioDigital that we put in the immersive learning room. So this is a platform that can be used on normal computer, tablets, but we put that in the immersive learning room to wow students. But also we'll be able to do group teaching as well. If you can see that this is a 3D model that I can move it around. I can zoom in to have a closer look. I hope that shows well on the screen. So our nursing team, physio team, they use this for anatomy teaching. So for example, we can highlight specific area. If you view the pronunciation of the, wait a minute, let me turn down the volume. I hope it will work. Yeah. So yeah, I give you the how to pronounce this specific area. They also give you some more reading information here. What they use quite a lot, I use this one as an example. So this is a model of a heart. We can rotate it, we can turn it around. But also, if you want to see how your heart works inside, we can highlight and hide. So it shows the inside of your heart and how things work. So for example, if I want to hide, and also what we do quite a lot is to isolate. So for example, I want to isolate this part. This part is isolated and we can focus on looking at this. So, yep. So there are various different body parts. So if you can see from, So we have a few selection here, but the full catalog is on the website. What we normally do is I work with academics to understand which body parts they want to be used in the immersive learning room and import that into our immersive learning room so they can use that in their teaching. So yeah, that's what we've been doing in the immersive learning room. We're hoping to develop more around relaxation sessions in the immersive environment, where mostly for students' well-being, especially during the exam period, exam season, they can come in to have a bit of a relax. I've been piloting that, so we put some lantern on the screen to create a relaxed environment. So yeah, that's what we've got on the roadmap. So any questions? Or interested in explore other areas?
We've got one question come through first from Leslie. Is it difficult to make the room available for all students? So where they've got a very large cohort, how would you get access for those students?
Yes, that's to be very honest with you, that's one of the challenges we've got. I say one of, it sounds like we have a lot of, but yeah, with the size of the room, and also we want to ensure that all the students have the best experience. We try to limit the number of students around 4 to 8. So having that in mind, if there's a bigger cohort, it takes time to go through the whole group of students. What we normally do is we create different stations. So especially courses like occupational therapy, we have a simulated kitchen. So a room that is created like a kitchen, a bathroom, and this room. So what they do is they put students in groups and they rotate between these 3 stations or 4 stations, the room next door for debrief. So for the debrief of after the activity in the immersive learning room. So that's what we normally do, is create different learning stations, and then student will go into each station for 10, 15 minutes or 20 minutes and rotate between these stations.
That's brilliant, thank you. Stephen, your hand went up.
Yeah, it did. Sorry, yeah, thanks very much. So I guess, Peter, this is more of an operational question then. So you're appointed to look after that space, and then academics come to you to develop the kind of material. So it's not the academics themselves that are delivering this material to those screens. They're asking for your support. Is that correct? Or do they kind of co-develop, or how does that work? And then the second part is how long, obviously that setup you've got there is really nice. So, practically, if 10 people come to you saying, I want this for September, is that going to happen? Or is there a lead in time that's many months down the line? If you can.
So yeah, so your first question, yes, I'm an appointed person to look after this room, including the maintenance of the hardware, and also support academics to develop the content. What we are doing at the moment is, I collect their ideas, the learning outcomes, and then I send it through the supplier to have those the content developed. But in the future, we are aiming to empowering academics to create the content by themselves. So that is the plan. We are hoping that academics will be able to, like how they upload things onto VLE, they will be able to create the things by themselves instead of going through me and then going through the company. So that's the plan. But we're testing different options. Your second question is about the timing. So it depends. The supplier, they provide, I think probably around 30 to 50 different backdrops. Mm-hmm. So we can easily make this environment in a home environment and clinical environment, outdoor environment, or indoor or fictional environments. So if one of the backdrop meet the need of the teaching, then that will be a lot easier. We just add different elements. For example, we add X-ray, we add CT scan, medical history on the screen. That's relatively quick, 2 to 3 weeks, sometimes probably up to 4 weeks, depending on how complex the activity is. But if we are thinking of creating a brand new from scratch, for example, like Crystal Mission, we created from scratch, nothing, white walls. It took, I think, around 6 weeks to create. So it depends. It depends how complex the content is.
Yep, thanks.
If that makes sense.
That's brilliant. Thanks, Peter. We've got time for one more. So Alistair asks, we'll do two. We'll squeeze you in, Meg. We'll do Alistair first, if that's all right. So the anatomy program, what are the advantages of having it in the room, in this immersive room, rather than just having that on the screen in a lecture theatre?
So what we got, the feedback we got from students, number one is the hand-on experience. So we let students to move things around, to try. So like nursing, they use this for self-directed learning. So they put students in here, telling them they are going to learn this specific area of body parts. They have academics in the room with them, but as a supervisor rather than a lecturer. So they explore these by themselves in small groups. I think it was 4 or 6 students a group. So they can try things around. And of course, they highlighted that the scale of the anatomy model on the screen give them a better experience than just on the projector in front of the classroom. So I'm guessing these are the 2 areas that students highlighted that they prefer to have those in here than in a lecture theatre. But I'm aware that with bigger cohort, it takes time to go through students. So I'm working with physio because they have large number of in a cohort. And we are trying to use this in lecture theatre or in the normal classroom where students basically see it from the screen in front of the classroom, and we can compare the difference in terms of their learning experience. If
That's brilliant.
Answer your question.
Yeah, I think that was really good. Meg, are you happy with the final question with a minute to sort of go?
Thank you. Yes. So I was going to ask about feedback from students. So I'm going to ask a different question. And have you explored or thought about how you might be able to use the space in a kind of hybrid way? So obviously we are remote, you are in the room. Is there a way for remote participants to also interact with the interface content? Have you thought anything about hybrid approaches?
So we actually did a hybrid approach, which is exactly the same as what we are doing now. Is we have a big screen, student join actually on site, but in a classroom, do peer assessment. So we have group of students here. Well, look at that. While I'm talking, it looks a bit weird. But in a clinical scenario, with patients here, they're doing the patient assessment, where other students doing peer assessment in the classroom through big screen, through camera here. I'm not sure about hybrid experience through interface, because interface, it basically creates long, narrow on your screen, also 3 screens, so it doesn't fall up, if that makes sense. So yeah, it doesn't create that immersive experience if you use it on the screen. So that would be something, that's a system that used to develop content to be used in this environment rather than as a standalone learning content for students on their device. So yeah, in short, the hybrid approach that we have done before is like this, where they do peer assessment, look at the activity here, and give students give their peers feedback either through the camera, through the video call, or when they do a debrief together.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. So with your crystal maze, are the students in another room and engaged and joined via a camera, or have you the wall that we can't see, is that an open space or is that a wall?
You mean behind the camera? It's a door.
Okay.
It's a door outside of the room. For Crystal Mission, we didn't stream. We recorded because what we are thinking is if we stream it or live stream to students, that student, if they have not done it, they got spoiled. They know what's happening behind the doors and which will affect their behaviors when they are doing the task. So we record it and we do the recording, or we use the recording for debrief to highlight some specific behaviors.
Great, thank you. Really interesting. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I will ask that final question because I think it's a really important one, and most of us are still here. So do students with disabilities enjoy the environment, and how accessible is it, and what adaptation, or how do you make sure it is accessible?
Yes, so every time, even if they have been in the room before, we always have psychological health and safety before they walk into the room to ensure that what they're going to experience in the room, the smell, maybe the sound and the visual, to ensure that they are prepared for the immersive experience. But we also tell them that if they don't feel comfortable at any point, they are free to leave the room for a bit. And if they choose not to stay in the room, we have this set up at the side of the room that we can quickly bring in to live stream. So students, maybe with disabilities or not feeling well in this immersive environment, they will still be able to be included in the learning activity by watching the live stream from the classroom next door. So that's how we do that, is to ensure that students have the choice to leave the room, but also not be excluded from the activity, if that makes sense.
Yeah, perfect sense.
Yeah.
Any final questions before we say thank you? If not, what I'll do is I'll circulate the recording and any supporting resources, just to say, massive thank you to Phil and Peter, two really engaging and insightful sessions. Great to see. And you've given Liverpool a lot of thought. So a big thank you from everyone. And I'll be in touch with everyone just with a follow-up email. So thanks, everyone, and enjoy the rest of the sunny day.